guys today. First, thanks for spending time with me today. You've been here early and often, so I thank you for spending time and listening to a conversation that we'll have this afternoon. And thanks to Mediapost for having us. We're a small startup company, but we think we're making some big impact in the industry. Okay? So I'm going to talk to you a bit about some summary findings of a report that we released today. If you visit Wall Street Journal after our conversation now and our website, as well as Business Wire, we'll have a full comprehensive report. But my goal is to give you some good data and maybe less of a sales pitch, and hopefully you walk away smarter. So you may have a big stat on me, but I'm Jason Smith. I've got 17 years of agency experience, so it's very interesting to get the warm seller introduction to talk to you guys, but I'm now Chief Business Officer of Location Sciences. And what we do is we have one core mantra. We don't sell media. We don't sell data. We don't sell attribution. We're essentially an independent, agnostic company that focuses on improving performance and transparency of location-based marketing. We do that through a proprietary technology. It's called Verify, where we examine all of the global signals of advertisers that focus on location marketing, and we provide you with depth of performance insight. We give you transparency of the data that informs what you've been doing, and we compose that type of research and insight across the global set of location marketing. So a lot of what we're going to talk today about is data that's maybe underneath what you've seen from your location-based marketing today, and how we've unearthed some new truths. But before we do that, I pardon any redundancy for folks that are very familiar, but there are two core components of what we look at. So when we talk about location data, we're typically referencing two core components. One is a core IP data set, which is born at the sort of entry point of a device or an internet-enabled device. So it's a static component, typically considered less accurate. That's per the MRC guidelines. And then your second element is GPS signals, born at the heart of an operating system on a phone, also typically captured within the device that you use. And all that means is it's capturing data quite often. And so if you have a specific proximity effort, a GPS signal is typically what you would want to rely on for accuracy. And so what we set out to achieve in our understanding was, does fraud or inaccuracy exist in the combination of these two data sets? And what we started to discover was that there were some noticeable occurrences that have been happening in our industry that some of you may know and others don't. And that is around the fraudulent component of high-quality GPS signals. They typically occur in one of three ways. One is the apps that you use. They may not be qualified to collect GPS-level signals. It's not providing you value when you're near a location, so there's not a need for that app to collect that data. We've also seen, because we spend money on location marketing, there's incentives for various application developers to fake GPS signals. And I'd say the last is maybe less negligent. It's actually just a failure to actually recognize on the supplier side the difference between IP and GPS. And so for many folks that do buy location marketing, and don't ask these questions, I forget the gentleman's name earlier, but he talked about his agency, someone that left for an agency and criticized the lack of inquiry. Sometimes these questions just aren't asked. So we help marketers ask the right questions and find truth in the source of what they do. So within our research, which is titled the 2019 State of Location Advertising Report, I'm going to show you some summary findings. There are several more pages, and I encourage you guys all to take a good look at it. And I'll be around. You can ask me questions as well. But what we sought out to understand were three core questions that we thought would be valuable to marketers. I've been a marketer for a very long time, and I wanted to focus on answering questions as opposed to scaring the shit out of you with just like fraud is everywhere. I don't know if that's very helpful. So we looked for three questions. One was, are our ads really deployed near the desired locations of your marketing campaigns? We define locations as a venue or store where transactions take place. And our second question was, can we be sure of the quality of the location data that's being used? Quality being defined of the makeup of GPS versus less accurate and reliable data, IP. And our last question, which is the most important part, our product is focused on unraveling transparency and data, but as a marketer, I don't care about data. I care about how data improves performance, outcomes. And so if we're not working towards that end, we're not sure we're a very valuable partner. And so I'll talk to you about some of the performance insights that we gathered as a result of what we provide in the marketplace. Okay? So these are some of our key findings, and I'll talk to you about how we got there. But some of them are a bit startling. Some are maybe things that you may have known. We'll start with we audited 500 million impressions globally. We audited a swath of retail, QSR, telecom, and auto manufacturers, very focused on foot traffic, point of sale. And we looked across 25 plus suppliers globally in the marketplace. So in that examination, what we saw was 65% of a given campaign was delivering poor quality or mistargeted location data. So that is, by definition, that is waste that impacts financial decisions within your business. And we also discovered across the apps that have the permissions to use GPS level signals, we discovered that 36% of those apps were actually conducting fraudulent behavior as it related to providing quality, accurate, authentic GPS signals for your marketing. And then the most startling point for us was of all of the impressions that are being delivered across what we analyzed, only 14% of the impressions within those buys were using GPS signals. So what does this mean? Essentially means that there is waste, there is impact on performance, and certainly challenges to a number of proximity-based marketers. And so the news isn't all bad, though. So good news is we'll talk about a long tail of suppliers that contributed mostly to these results, but there are very good suppliers that have good quality data, good quality work for your business. And in working with those folks, we've actually seen a plus 40% inaccuracy of the impressions that are delivered across the brands, the publishers, and the campaigns that we audited within our report. So how do we get there? So we look at two core metrics. The first is what we call point of interest health, which measures the location accuracy, essentially the proportion of impressions that you bought that effectively met the desired location that you wanted to target as a marketer. And so when we looked at that, we walked away with the key finding that of 100% of impressions, 29% on a given campaign was missing the target. Various reasons for that. But in summary, some were soft as just negligence, essentially inattention to the program, or maybe there was incorrect campaign setups. But maybe the most startling piece was just turning off campaign targeting. And why would that happen? This happens because GPS signals are also finite. And so for many location marketers in the room, you would like to spend as much money as you can to get this stuff achieved. And we don't know many publishers that are going to say no to your money. And so in exchange for that, in the background, there are sort of swaps of GPS and IP level signals that are very difficult for marketers to actually see without some type of third-party component to validate that for you. So a big number. And I mentioned that it's not all doom and gloom. There are some suppliers that do a very good job. And so across the 25 plus suppliers that we audited, what we came to conclude was that 60% of them were accurately delivering the media that you want against the impressions and targets that you desired. We have a threshold of about 80% plus. We firmly believe that if attention is paid to the matter, you can easily achieve 100%. But in fairness, when you see me, you can talk to me about why 80%. But above that 80% threshold, we saw that 60% of the suppliers that we audited were actually fairly good. Okay? And so our second metric looks at location signal quality. So makeup of GPS and IP and what you deliver. And as we looked at the makeup of that quality of data that's being used for your location marketing, we saw that of the suppliers we audited, 36% of them were using poor quality, unbeknownst to many of your marketers. So in summary, that kind of brings you to a space where you see maybe a less scary component for the supply side. 35% of the suppliers that were delivering good quality data were good, and the remainder were maybe less stellar. So what does that mean for you as a marketer? It actually is a good equation. It gives you a chance to consolidate your partner selection, right? I worked in this space for a very long time, and I remember having 10 different location partners on a plan, and it just makes you wonder, do you need that much? How can you consolidate, gain efficiencies, be smarter? So the key takeaway is, according to our research on a given day, with the diagnostic that we applied, up to 65% of money that's spent on location marketing today could effectively be deemed as waste, and likely unbeknownst to marketers because of the way our ecosystem works. If you are in this space, you will know this for sure. The great majority of our industry is composed of two pieces. One's coupled packages that sell you media, data, attribution together, and then others that likely buy media or conduct off of an exchange without real access to the data. So this gives you a sort of agnostic look at how that works. And I'll just close with, what does it mean in terms of performance? This was the most important thing to me to talk to such a smart room of marketers about, was what do you do with it and how do you get better? Doesn't help to just know that things aren't as great as we thought. What we did learn was we ran a pre and post. So this test was looking at marketers that essentially did not have our technology in play. And then we measured the results of their performance after implementing our tech and also adhering to the optimizations that we saw. So two key stats. We saw a 40% increase in the accuracy of the data or quality of the data that was being used, so more GPS was bought. And that's good because it didn't impact pricing, but you got higher quality signals. And then of the effectiveness of the accuracy of targeting impressions, we saw up to a 10% lift, which is a noticeable impact if you start to extrapolate out on millions of dollars. So nice savings to reinvest into your marketing. So four key takeaways. The first is, we're now aware that there is a representation of 65% of mistargeted spending, but the good news is much of it can be completely avoided just by having some type of additional insight on what you do. Independent transparency into GPS and IP level data can be a great contributor to improving that performance. Third point is, location marketing can actually be improved if you require technologies that give you this type of insight. Think about senior marketers in a room. When we talked about viewability, what was it, 7-10 years ago? There was a big fear about what that meant. And as that gets embraced, the industry improves. And I say the fourth is that don't be afraid. There are actually some very good suppliers in the marketplace. So our encouragement is to say, inquire, ask about that, understand which of these suppliers are actually meeting these types of standards, and then really focusing your energy on consolidating and finding the right spaces for your business. All right, so thanks for hanging out with me. And I'm at time, yeah? Just a little over. Okay, and I'll see you guys if you've got questions, but